If you are listening to this right now, you're one of the lucky ones, because it's not every day you get to hear from a young entrepreneur as badass as this one. He is the founder of Real Estate Redesigned, and this 22-year-old kid impressed me so much, I had to get him on GLE, and he was gracious enough to join me. Dominic Lee, welcome to GLE, my man.
Brother, that was an intro that I don't think can ever be matched, so I appreciate that.
Well, I'm glad you could come on, man. You're doing some cool things. We had one brief conversation with a couple friends, and I could just, it's one of those things, you meet people, you hear something in their voice, the way they carry themselves. Yeah. You told me you were 22. I'm like, I was just blown away. Start off just telling our audience a little bit about your origin story. How did Dominic Lee get to where he is today at 22 years old?
Yeah, man. So story of Dominic Lee. I was always that kid that I would say was just trying to figure it out, man. I really was. It's not that, I could get along with everybody. I love talking most of the time, too much in class. I had some learning disabilities I was always working through in school. School was just never my thing. And then at an early age, so I was lucky enough to have parents that kind of gave me the support in anything I really wanted to do. So my dad used to be an entrepreneur, and then he got into the corporate world. So he was always like, when he saw an entrepreneur, he knew what it was. And so I actually just learned this story about 3 weeks ago. And this was, and he said to me, Dom, you know how I always knew you were going to be okay? And I said, what? And he goes, when you were about 7 years old, you went out and grabbed our 6-foot little card table and went out into the driveway. You took all of our lemonade in the fridge and you started selling lemonade on it. He goes, but what really impressed me, he's like, that's what every kid does. He goes, what really impressed me is you went to the neighbor's house and you went to the neighbor kids and you started leveraging the neighbor kids to sell more lemonade. And you had lemonade stands set up on each corner by the roads in our neighborhood so that we'd sell more lemonade. And then I took all the funds and I distributed it depending on how many cups of lemonade these kids sold. And this was like 7 years old. And I found that funny because that was literally what I was just trying to do. I was always just trying to figure it out, dude. School wasn't my thing. I knew it wasn't my thing since I was a really young age. When I got where I would say my pivotal point when I was a kid was probably at the age of 14. I started getting randomly very, very interested in the real estate industry, which is the industry that I have most of my companies in right now. And started getting interested, started watching YouTube, found all these people, found some people that are obviously huge nowadays, like the Grant Cardone to the world, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
And I just started studying it, man. I was 14. People called me weird because I would just study that stuff. And I would start studying these wealthy people because I really would. I would sit down and read things about Bill Gates or Warren Buffett and how they create wealth. And I don't know why. It just fascinated me. And it's something that I was interested in instead of algebra too. And so I always struggled in school with that. I had some bullying issues in school because of my learning disabilities that I worked through and stuff like that. And I would say just a mixture of all that stuff and then learning how to work hard at a young age. I've worked since I was 14 and 8 months, which is the legal age in Michigan, in the state of Michigan. I just kind of put me into the place that I am now, where it's I just have kind of adopted the mindset that nobody's going to hand me anything in life, including my parents, including my family, including my fiance, anybody like that. I gotta go earn it all. And so I've just been doing that since I was a young age, since I guess 7 years old, according to my dad's story. He told me a little while ago, and that's just how I am, man. I love it.
So when did Real Estate Redesign come along?
Real Estate Redesign. Oh man. So I have a business partner, love him to death, Scott Wheaton. He's a guy that would be great for this podcast as well. And so how it happened is I joined the real estate industry. I was in college, actually, at a community college here locally, doing my thing. It's not that I was ever bad at school. I just couldn't find passion in it. And so I would just go through it. You know what I mean? I was that kid that would get B's and C's and wouldn't do the homework unless I had to, and would just do that kind of stuff. Dropped out of college. I had an entrepreneur 101 class, was in a tutoring session with this professor. Get this. I asked the professor, we were just in conversation. So what business do you currently own? Or what did you used to own? Are you retired? Was just trying to figure out his background, right? Starting conversation. He looks me dead in the eyes and goes, well, I've actually never owned a business and I don't currently own a business. I was blown away. I'm sitting in a tutoring class with this professor. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole there, but I had to tell that story because I was absolutely blown away. So I was like, what is going on? I was like, what in the world? And so I'm like, so then that night I was so frustrated. I was so sad. I was calling my parents like, Mom, Dad, I don't know what to do. This guy is teaching entrepreneurship. He's not an entrepreneur. Like, what is an entrepreneur? I don't know what to do with my life. And during that time credit, I was still studying real estate. And so then I was like, whatever. Parents talked me down and were like, you know, it is what it is, Dom. Just do what you got to do. I start Googling that night. Couldn't sleep all night Googling. I didn't even know what to do to get into the real estate industry. All I knew is I wanted to own a bunch of property, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, who is at the head of a real estate transaction? Real estate agent Brock came up. I'm like, oh, well, I've heard of realtors, you know, blah, blah, blah. We had a nice realtor when we moved to Michigan and moved, you know, things like that. So start Googling it, found out you only had to be 18 to be a realtor. This is when I was 18. I was like, you're kidding me. I was like, this is it. I'm going to be a realtor. You only got to be 18. You got to take this 40-hour licensing course. I can sell all the real estate. I get to know about the deals first, and I can buy as much real estate as I want if I have the money to do so.
Ding, ding,
That's
ding.
perfect. And I love to talk to people. So I'm like, let's do this. Did the course. I signed up for the course all by myself, really had no guidance. Unfortunately, I signed up for a class that actually wasn't registered with the state. That was a big and a $250 mistake. Passed this course, and then they were like, you don't get a certificate. And the state of Michigan's like, that's not a registered course with us. So then I had to redo the class.
Wow.
I redid the class, and then I passed the test on my first time, and then I was lost. And that's how the story of a real estate agent goes. Because unfortunately, and this probably is the same thing around all industries. I mean, whatever industry you really want to talk about, it's probably this, especially if it involves a license. I had no idea how to be a realtor. I'm like, I just learned all the legal minutia of being a realtor. I learned what a purchase agreement was and what this was, but I didn't know how to be a realtor. I didn't know how to get business. I thought I would join some broker and they would hand me business, and that's what I would do.
Right.
If you're in the real estate industry, and anybody listening in this industry is probably laughing because that's not the case, unfortunately. So I was like, what in the world? I was on a team because I joined a team and I knew them, and it just wasn't a good fit. And then I found a mentor in the industry, and he's like, no. This is what you got to do. You can accomplish this. And within 2 weeks, my whole demeanor kind of changed, and I figured it out. I was like, okay, because it made sense, right? I made this many calls, or I talked to this many people, and I could get these amount of sales because it just made sense. And so I hit the ground running. I went after it. I started, calling people, talking to people, door knocking people, going to these events, holding these pop-up events, holding these open houses, doing everything I can do. I sold about 8 million in my first year after that, which was pretty good. It got me off my feet, got some debt that I collected along the way during college and things like that. And I decided to move out on my own for no reason. I just did. And that kind of happened. And then to answer your question, kind of the short story is when I was on that team, I joined my mentor's team. The meeting I went to go meet the rest of his team, I met another guy, and he was a young guy, same exact age. Scott Wheaton's my same exact age, is 22. I was like, who are you? And he's like, who are you? Well, I was like, well, wow. We both found out we were 19 at the time.
Wow.
And we just clicked. We just hit it off, dude. It was like, it was meant to be when it came to a business relationship. And then I came to Scott and I was like, dude, why aren't we doing this? He's like, well, what do you mean? What doing what? And I'm like, why aren't we mentoring agents and teaching them how to do what we're doing? We're both producing at the highest level in our area. Like, why don't we help other people? Because we both have a service heart, right? And so we started planning it. We planned it for about 6 months on the other team. And then finally it just got to the point where it was like, we were being held back, not owning our own team and stuff like that. And we had so many people coming to us, asking us questions and yada, yada, yada. I had a passion. I grew a passion really quickly that I found love in mentoring people because I started mentoring people along the way. And I was like, Scott, let's just jump ship and let's do this thing. I don't care if we don't have enough money saved up to fully fund this thing. Let's do it. Let's hit the ground running. Let's see what happens. So we did that of June of last year, just over a year ago. And Real Estate Redesigned was created because we are trying to redesign the real estate industry and mix technology and the younger age, I call it, into the industry and kind of just change the way it goes right now.
It's amazing, Dominic. Dude, like, I want to go back because you've said a couple things that really stood out to me. One, school wasn't for you, which is like your stereotypical entrepreneur thing, right? The Gary V's of the world are always like, exactly. It's just like school's not for everybody, right? And like, what was your struggle with learning disabilities like too? Because it sounded like that was a kind of a big thing in your life early on.
Yeah, dude, it was tough. I'm not even going to try to front and put on a tough guy act or anything like that. It was really tough. There were so many times I was so ADHD and so dyslexic. Like it was not. And then I had a few other learning disabilities that like I don't even really talk about because those were my two major ones. Like it was bad. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't look at a board for more than 5 seconds. I could hardly even read my own name. And that is not a joke until like 4th grade. And then I had a teacher that I call my saving grace, Mrs. Smalley. And I think it was 3rd or 4th grade. She kind of got a hold of me and she took me under her wing and was just like, we're going to do this. You can do this. They're not going to put you in a basic room is what they call it, which is a room for people, with autism or Down syndrome or just, very severe learning disabilities like that. And she's like, we're not going to let them do that. You can do this. And to be completely honest, like we almost faked a couple things, like just to get me through, and so like it was tough. You know how kids are, dude. Some kids are mean and they don't even know how they're being mean.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'd be called like, and I was chunky. In elementary school, I went through a growth spurt of quite literally like a foot in like 6 months. And so like I was pounding food. I'm a little boy playing sports, pounding food. I got chunky. What can I say? And so I was getting called fat. I was getting called stupid, retard, all the worst things you could possibly like call somebody. And then I had my own insecurities, right? And so like it really hurt me, really put me down. And I had that stuff up until about 8th grade, I would say. And I would say it added to my character. One, because like now I just have the self-awareness that like how effective that some of that stuff can be to people.
Right.
That's what we call that. But not only that, but now I just have a chip on my shoulder where I'm like, I will never allow like me to be perceived as stupid again, or I will never allow like me to not be able to do something. If I feel like overwhelmed because I have to read through a contract that's, 72 pages, like I just had to do the other day,
right,
for a property I'm buying or something like that, like I do it. And I find the challenge exciting now because I'm like, I went from like not even being able to read my name in 2nd and 3rd grade to like being able to do what I'm doing now. And so like, answer your question, dude, it was so challenging. But if you like find anybody that struggles through that, you got to find support, just like in anything. You got to find support and you have to not allow it to crumble you. Because I'll admit, like for a year, there was probably a year there that I don't even know if my parents knew, but like I was severely depressed. And like, and divorce, I don't know where that came through my head, but I was severely.
It's because you just got engaged, man. Come on. You think about that already? I know you're not. I'm teasing.
I was depressed, like dark thoughts, man. Couldn't sleep, had night terrors, like just all.
Yeah. So it sounds like, finding that person to really help kind of guide you was huge for you, man. And I think this is one area where many people can go wrong because they got people in their life telling them things. It's, it's friends at school. It's just acquaintances. It's their family. They might even love them and try to give them the best advice in the world. But one thing about like you had ADHD, dyslexia, I'm not knocking or trying to make light of the things you dealt with, but I think you're a really special kid.
Yeah.
And by no means do I think you have a learning disability. Right. So one thing I see a lot is there's these people that are special like yourself and they're told, hey, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You have ADHD or whatever. And it's like, why is it a problem? Like, just because I can't sit in a classroom doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. It means I'm different than you. Right. Yep. And I just feel like a lot of times we just you're kind of like labeling kids and putting them in classes and trying to just generalize things, which, like, someone like yourself, if you didn't have someone like that individual in your life to really guide it, you could have gone on a totally different path.
Dude, I could have been, I have no idea what path I'd be on, because, like, honestly, what happens when you have a kid almost backed into a corner, just being completely obliterated each day, called all these names and stuff like that? What is a kid's instinct? Most of the time they're going to fight back. And that's what it was getting to. I was just like, I can't take this anymore. So I started getting in stuff with kids and getting in these arguments, getting in these fights and stuff like that. And it's like, I think about that now. Like, even I think about if I had a child right now and if they were going through that, you probably don't think that those little arguments or those little fights, or like, Bobby got a bloody nose, like that little stuff, you don't think that could turn into something massive until it continues to snowball.
Right.
And same with depression. Like, until that depression, it might be a little bit of depression. They might be a little sad. They might be a little down. But if you don't find a way to nip that at an early age and at an early stage, it's going to continue to snowball. And so, like, you're exactly right, man. And that's something that, like, nowadays is why I have such a big passion in helping people, because it's like, I look at all the pivotal points in my life so far. My short life, I'm 22 years old. I haven't had a bunch of that. I look at all the pivotal points in my life where I have made just leaps, what I mean, in my maturity and in my success. All of those were because I met different mentors. Mm-hmm. And so I will always be the first one all the time to say mentors are some of the most important things that you can find in life. And I will also be some of the first people to say is, that could be your parents, but that also means you might need somebody else other than your parents, because your parents can only do so much. And I want to be the same way when I have kids. If I'm blessed one day enough to have kids, and hopefully I do, I'm about to marry this beautiful girl, and we're going to try to have a family shortly after. I think about this all the time. I'm like, when my kids are old enough, I will strive to try to find them mentors other than just myself. Obviously, I'm going to try to be a mentor in their life, and I hope I can be someone that they can look up to in life one day. But it's like, you need somebody outside of just your parents that can say, dude, you got to do this and not this. Mm-hmm. Or don't listen to that, listen to this. Because it's, how it is. Parents just sometimes don't say certain things, or they don't want to say certain things because they feel like it can do something to your kid. And then also there's some things that they don't want to say because they're scared if they say it, it's going to be taken the wrong way. And then their kid's going to be like, oh, I don't have to go to college. And then they're doing drugs on the side of the road when they're 30 and, like, home.
Right.
So, like, there's a lot of things, but I'm a huge advocate for mentors. I find mentors all the time. I talk to people all the time. When you and I first met, I had no idea what I was jumping into. I was like, oh, cool. Our mutual friend contacted me and was like, hey, there's a bunch of successful people that I want to introduce you to, and they're really cool people, and yada, yada, yada. Boom, I'm there. Anytime somebody says there, I'm there. Anytime somebody wants to talk, I'm there, just because I love to talk to people, because you never know who you're going to meet and you never know who you're going to learn. I just talked to a 12-year-old the other day, dude. I literally learned 3 things. I'm like, what? He was teaching me something, and I'm like, I thought I was new and hip because of the industry. Right. The average age is like 50 something, 56, something crazy. And this 12-year-old comes and shows me this thing about TikTok. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like, TikTok. I'm like, yeah, I know what TikTok is. I'm not, like, old.
Right.
And then he starts teaching me this whole different way of how we can do an advertisement on TikTok. And I'm like, this 12-year-old just created a new marketing tunnel for my company. So that's awesome.
If you're out there listening to this right now, rewind that and re-listen to everything Dominic just said about mentorship, because you really need to get this through your head. It's so big. I'm experiencing it a little bit later than Dominic did. Just how impactful it is getting around the right people, getting around people that are actually doing the things you want to do. And to his point, it's not that, your parents don't love you and want to give you good advice, but if your parents aren't doing and living how you want to live, then you need to go find people that are actually doing the things you want to do and have the relationships that you want to have, and the types of marriages you want to have. And I heard a great quote the other day about this topic. It was, your parents might love you. They'll say something to you like, don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
Right. Which, maybe that seems like good advice, but it's kind of a broke mindset, because I'd rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity.
Exactly.
And, perfection is a fear-based belief system, thinking we can take on too much and, okay, if we drop the ball here or there. And I was like this, man, as an engineer, because we engineers, we can't mess up, right? If we design something wrong, like people die. So you're kind of like trained to not screw up and, you got to do it perfect and do your design or whatever. But man, you nailed it. Getting around the right people that are actually doing what you want to do is so huge, like so huge, dude.
Yeah. And the thing also about that, like back to the parent thing, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
Your parents are no lesser. If your parents, for example, your parents are in the pharmaceutical industry and the teaching industry, like they're no lesser because they're living their dreams and you're like, oh, I want to do real estate and make $1 gazillion. Just because that's not their dream doesn't mean that you're wrong for having that dream. And your parents, if they're a good support system, shouldn't be blaming you for having that dream. They should be patting you on the back and say, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, and if they don't, it's probably because they're scared that you're gonna do exactly what you just said, which is bite off more than you can chew, kind of a thing. I'll tell you what, I'm glad that my parents shared that concern, because it was kind of like, because when I started my company, I told them, I went to my mom and dad, I said this and that. My dad was supportive. He said, you can do it, but Dom, just be careful. I've been in business before. If you do the wrong things, you don't connect with the wrong people, you can get screwed. It's true. Yeah. Everybody knows that you're an entrepreneur. It's so true. That was his piece of advice. And then my mom, of course, she's Mama Bear. She said, just please be careful and please don't screw yourself and get into a bunch of debt, yada, yada, yada. I don't remember exactly what she said, but both of those things I didn't take negatively. I didn't go back home and say, oh my God, they don't want me to do this. They don't want that. I said, well, it's nice that they shared their concerns. I'm going to go after this thing and I'm not going to fail, because I refuse to fail. And so, like, was there times I was in debt? Dude, I was broke. I was broke. When I started that business, when I say broke, I was like $27,000 in debt. I remember this, $27,000 in debt. And sometimes this gives me goosebumps, because like, so 27K in debt, I literally was buying either the $9, I think they're $1.16 or something like that, chicken nuggets from Burger King. I would make that last all day. That would be my meal for the day. Or I would buy, if I had $5, I'd buy a Little Caesars pizza and make it last, like with my roommate, who's still my best friend on this day, make it last for like 2 to 3 days. And like, that's how broke I was. I was taking cans back. I was doing stuff like that, but I was still waking up at 6 a.m. every morning, getting in the office by 7 a.m. Sometimes I was waking up at 5 a.m., getting in the office by 6 a.m., depending on my workload. And I wasn't leaving that office until 7, 8 p.m. And then after I got home, I was researching and doing what I had to do to try to figure out what I had to do. I was working my tail off. You know what I mean? And so when I think about that, I'm just like, it's part of the seasons, dude. I call them seasons of business, man. It's like, you start a business, no matter what, you're going to have some tough seasons. I don't care if you start a business. We just officially launched another business last week, and it's our management company, our rental property management company. And I have a guy that I brought into it that's going to spearhead this company for me. And we gave him some equity share and stuff like that. And I'm like having a lot of fun this last week, which sounds insane. And I know I'm going down a different lane here, so just bear with me and keep track of time if I'm going too far or whatever. But
you're good, man. We love it. Keep going. All right.
So I'll talk this. Keep in mind, this is a great friend of mine. And I was warned. They were like, well, make sure you don't mix friendship with business and stuff like that. And I have a different mindset in that. I don't look at these contracts, these legal contracts between business owners, as legal contracts. I look at them as what I call friendship savers, because I don't go into business with anybody unless I think and I know they're a phenomenal human being and somebody that I could be friends with for the rest of my life. So I'm going in business with this guy. And this last week, it's been kind of funny because like we're starting this business with very minimal investment, on purpose for a couple of different reasons. And he's stressed out about a few different things because we're having the growing pains, right, of a new business. We're at the very beginning stage and stuff like that. And we've had probably 5 or 6 talks of me just having to continue to reiterate him and stuff like that. And so I've got another business partner that's like all stressed out about it and stuff like that. And just man, like, what are we going to do? Is he going to quit? Is this what's going on? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, calm down. It's all good, man. Well, why aren't you stressed, Dom? And I'm like, I'm not stressed because this is a part of the game. If he's not feeling these growing pains, then we're not doing something right. Like, it shouldn't be that easy to start a business. I don't have $1 billion to start this business and it can be up and running like that. And I hire 40 staff, like some of these companies. We're starting this with very minimal funds on purpose. And so I just always try to be the good energy of the room kind of a thing. And I continue to just try to like I said, man, I'm having fun. Like, I've had some very serious conversations with this individual and we've gotten very personal. I've gotten, deep into some topics with him and like completely just tried to rebuild him several times just within the last couple of weeks because it's stressful as heck. And I'm having a blast doing it, man. I'm just like, this is what it's about. Mm-hmm. It's about helping people see the bigger picture. Because if you focus on the small picture all the time, sometimes that small picture can be really, really tough. I've had a very, very tough year so far, dude. Like, we've had a lot of family issues. I almost lost my dad this year. Like, I've got a grandmother that is probably the only grandmother I'm close with that's passing as we speak. Like, I've had a tough year. And the only thing that's kept me grounded through that all is just being the constant good energy in the room and striving for that. And embracing the suck, I always say you got to embrace the suck. And what that means, and people are like, what does that even mean? I'm like, when it gets tough, the saying, when you're going through hell, keep on going. That's a great song. If you listen to country, it's one of my favorite songs because it's like, why would you stop? Why would you let it stop you? Why would I sit at home, cry and say, oh, this happened to me. This is the toughest year right after COVID. I've had this almost, I'm not going to. I'm going to take the punches. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep being positive. I'm going to keep bringing people up. If somebody comes in my office and they're bawling their eyes out because they're having a tough time with starting this business and they're way overwhelmed because they have 45 things to do in 24 hours, I'm going to build them up. I'm going to drop what I have to do that day and I'm going to build them up and I'm going to get them back on track because you got to see the bigger picture. Small picture, like I said, if you focus on the small picture and it's in a tough season of your life, you're going to be very, very depressed and you're going to let it beat you. If you continue to focus at the big picture and remind yourself of the big picture every day, sometimes 5, 6, 7 times a day, if you need it, you're going to stay on track. And so that's just what I kind of do. And I don't know, it's helped me so far and it keeps me light-minded. And I'm not perfect. Nobody is. I'll admit, 3 weeks ago, I did take a day to myself where I was just like, I gotta slow down a little bit. Yeah. And regroup myself. You know what I did? And that whole day, what I did is I wrote my goals a bunch. I wrote what I was thankful for. I wrote what I was grateful for. I keep this planner. And this is something that I suggest to anybody. If you're working at a high level, and what I mean by working at a high level means like taking advantage of your time completely. I break everything down by 15 minutes and sometimes by the minute. And so it allows me to accomplish more in a day, point blank. Right. I made this thing and I give it up to all of our agents, all of our employees. It's called the Productivity Planner. And you write your goals twice a day. You write a quote of the day. You write your tasks for the day and you write your scheduled appointments for the day. And so basically what that is it's like when you wake up in the morning and you write your goals, it gives you a little spark of energy. You know what you got to do today to accomplish those goals. At the end of the day, when you wrap up your day, you make sure all your tasks are crossed off that you need to do. Your appointments, hopefully, were all completed or whatever. And then you write your goals again just to kind of close the day out. And I figured you write your goals once in the morning, you write them once in the afternoon. That's twice a day, 2 times 7. That's 14 times however many weeks there are in a year, man. You're writing your goals more than the average person. So I try to just be the positive light. That's what it comes down to.
That's awesome, Dominic. Man, for you listeners, if you're listening out there and you're not following Dominic already, you got to go follow this guy at _Dominic Lee _ on Instagram. That's DOMINICLEE. You can find him on Facebook at Dominic Lee Realtor or at Real Estate Redesigned Inc. and realestateredesignedinc.com is the website. You got to go follow him. Man, I'm learning a lot, Dominic. This is really fun, man. I want to touch on something that you said way earlier, and I keep like hearing these threads about embracing the suck, about going through the different seasons of business and the hard times in business. Do you think all that criticism you faced as a young kid kind of thickened your skin and prepared you to deal with some of the suck later in life? And then like when you were older, like in your 14-year-old age where you're like, reading all these books and, you weren't doing great in school, but you were like interested in other stuff. I'm sure as you went through those years, you faced criticism, maybe even as you were starting your business, you probably faced some criticism or hate or whatever. Like, how did you deal with that mentally, going through that criticism?
Yeah, man. Sometimes you do better than other times, honestly. So it's like I wish I had. So to answer your question, yes, that all helps. It's like when you work out. When you work out, you get calluses on your hands, right? If you lift weights enough and, you get these small calluses on your hands. I say that you get a callus on your mind. And every tough thing that happens in life, whether you're religious, some people say God will test you, and it will build your mental state. It'll callus your brain. It'll callus your mental toughness, I always say. So all those instances, I'm always so thankful for. I say that all the time. I'm so thankful that I was bullied. And somebody said, like, I was in a lunch one day, and I'm going to tell a short story because it was a story that I always think back to because it changed kind of my perspective. In the short term, when I was getting bullied, I had a lot of anger. I wanted to beat those kids down. I wanted, just bad things. Naturally, my emotions had a lot of anger. Even in high school, my emotions had a lot of anger. I wasn't bullied as much because I was always, an athlete and stuff like that, but I was bullied in different ways. And I was even bullied by teachers. I had a couple of teachers that, man, they just said the absolute worst things. I had one teacher that told me I'd never amount to anything.
Wow.
Funniest part about that, I had to leave the room. I was so upset. The funniest part about that next month, for some reason, I won Student of the Month in the whole district. And I had no idea why. I'm like, what? I won Student of the Month. Like, what is going on? And I want to give you a background about my school, to be honest, real quick. I come from a very preppy town, Okemos. It's considered the best school district in the Lansing area and one of the best in the state and in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Let that be good or bad. If you didn't go to a 4-year university at my school, you were an outlier and you were a lowlife. And so I was told that. I was so upset. I left my room. I left class. I couldn't handle it. I was like, dude, I'm gonna do something that could get me in a lot of trouble. I gotta leave. Like, I can't. It tore me apart. Next month,
crazy that a teacher would say that to you, man. Good grief.
It didn't make sense to me. And so I was like, what in the world? So the next month I win Student of the Month, and they said, you can elect one teacher to come and speak in behalf of you and tell all the good things. And so I called that teacher that said that. And so that teacher came, and her and I had a conversation before and whatever. And there were some apologies and, yada, yada, yada and stuff like that. But I was still nervous as heck because I'm like, why did I ask this teacher to come speak about me? I had no idea. I thought it'd be funny because here I am. I won Student of the Month, and she just told me some mean things to me. She goes up on the stage in front of this group of people and yada, yada, yada. And she said some of the greatest things about me that I'm like, it kind of set me back a little bit. You know what I mean? And it kind of wasn't at an early stage. It gave me motivation because that's always stuck in my head that she said I would never amount to anything. But it also impressed me because even though we had that beef, a month prior, and she came in and we talked things through, and she kind of apologized, and it wasn't real apology. It was more like you misinterpreted it or something like that. And I know I didn't because I remember it clear as day. It was in front of the whole class. She still was able to go up and say the greatest things about me. And so what that taught me to kind of forgive a little bit. And so I was able to forgive. I forgave her for that because she wouldn't have said some great things about me, whether she believed them or not. Maybe she was just talking.
Right.
But,
right.
So I tell that story because back to the lunch conversation. I'm sitting at lunch with a guy I'm networking with. he actually went to the same high school, just graduated many years before me. And he goes, dude, don't you just want to be so filthy rich that you have some of those kids that bullied you come to try to apply for your business, and then you can just laugh in their face and turn the application down? Dude, for some reason, I don't know what it was, my first initial thought, and I always thought this as a kid, I always said I'm going to own businesses and I'm never going to hire these kids. I'm never going to do this. Before I could even think about it, I said, no, I would never do that. And he was like, what? And I was like, I would never do that. And he's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, yeah, man, I would probably interview him just like anybody else. And I would probably tell him in the interview that I forgave them, that I appreciate them growing my mental toughness and helping me get through that. And I would give them an honest try. And what's hilarious about that is, so that conversation happened my first year into real estate before I technically owned my own team and yada, yada, yada. Fast forward to now, I've had 2 people that used to bully me interview for a company so far. And we have an admin that was friends with one of the kids that used to bully me. And so like, wow. No, it was just like, it was a natural thing that I responded to when that conversation came up at lunch. And it was a natural forgiveness that came out of me that I didn't even know at the time I had.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so I will do that. And so back to the main topic is like, yes, that stuff really helped me. It calloused me. It has continued to make me tougher. It's continued to make me able to handle things. But it's a lot of work, dude. It is a lot of work. There was very, very low points in my life, even through high school, where I was just like, is this what life is? Because if this is what life is, like, why does everybody talk it up so much? You know what I mean? This is crazy. Like, and so I always am so thankful for those situations, for those teachers, for those students, for those moments. Another thing that happened in my life, dude, is like, before I discovered business and I discovered real estate, football was my life. That was my thing. Just like most kids, when they find a sport they really like, right? And I put everything into it. I played all year round. If I wasn't playing in season, I was training, or I was going to these camps, or I was doing this. And then I had a career-ending injury. I destroyed my right leg during a scrimmage, and football was taken away from me. That was sophomore year, going into sophomore year, I think. And I was like, what do I do now? I don't know what to do. I only went to school so I could play football. You know what I mean? That was me. I literally would go to school to play football. Right. And I was just squeaking by this much. So I could end the thing. And I was like, well, my life is over. I don't know what to do, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, I say that gave me some mental toughness skills too, because now it's like, if I have a deal that doesn't work out, I'm just like, oh, all right, on to the next. You know, I always say one of my favorite 4-letter words is next. And because it is, you know what I mean? Somebody doesn't want to work for you, or they find a different passion. Cool. Next. You know what I mean? Like, this client just cussed me out and is mad at the world and doesn't want to work with us and waste a bunch of my time. Cool. Next. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I always do. So
it sounds like, Dominic, you have kind of a soft heart. And I say that as a compliment. And I say it kind of in the perspective. I've heard, I don't know if you listen to Jordan Peterson at all, but I like a lot of Jordan Peterson's stuff. You should check him out. But he talks about the best men are dangerous men, but they know how to control it. Yeah. They know how to keep themselves under control. But they're not weak, right? Yeah. And you sound like a strong guy. But you've got kind of this forgiveness and softness to you that I think kind of speaks to what Jordan's talking about. I'm just curious, like, where do you think that comes from?
It comes from, dude, I don't even know if I can answer that. Like, I don't know where it's come from. And that's exactly right. And I wish, and recently the girl I'm about to marry has made that come out so much more since I've known her, which has been a couple of years now. Because I used to be that way. I've always been that way my whole life. But like recently in the last couple of years, it's really come out even more. And I don't know what I can give credit to of causing that, to be honest. But I think it's just been a collection of like me working on it for many, many years. because I also like during those times where I was kind of getting bullied and I was getting called names and stuff like that, it caused a little bit of anger almost, I would say. I kind of touched on that earlier. I wouldn't say I had anger issues. I wouldn't say that I was whatever. I was just a very, I would say, depressed kid that couldn't catch a break, and that just had way too much energy that I wasn't using in the right way.
How did you respond to that anger back then? Like, what was your reaction to those guys? Did you get quiet and just kind of like ignore it? Did you fight them back? Like what?
Dude, but collection. Sometimes I would just get quiet, walk away, and then a few times I would fight them, like, and just say, you know what, I'm done with this. This is enough. And, or I would take it out at football and I would just pound kids. Like I would get in trouble at football practice because like I would take a kid out and then just start wailing on him that was bullying me earlier that day. And people would be like, why did you just do that? And I'm like, well, did you hear what he said to me earlier? And so like,
football was great.
Dude, it was fun.
What position did you play in football?
I was a running back and linebacker. And so I used to have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Man, we played the same position, dude.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Running back and linebacker. That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. So
that's cool, dude.
I would just, I would do that. But to answer your first question, I just think it's a collection of like, I don't know, man. I just feel like if you don't forgive something or just say whatever, you know what I mean? It is what it is. That's another one of my favorite things. It's like, if I can't control it, I can't control what Billy Bob said to me. You know what I mean? If he thinks I'm a stupid fat head, he thinks I'm a stupid fat head. Like, whatever. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll cut my hair differently if that makes you happy. I don't know. Like, I just think it's a collection of that type of stuff that I'm just like, if I don't forgive him, what's the alternative? That's what I always say. What's the alternative, man? Are you not going to forgive this person? You know what I mean? Like, I don't, or at least get past it. What's the alternative? I'm not going to have that grudge on my shoulder for the rest of my life, or even a week, or even.
I got another mentor in my life that says that same thing. You know, you always got to be asking, what's your next best alternative?
Exactly.
That's great advice, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Great advice. So where'd you work as a kid? You mentioned you worked since you were like 14 or whatever. What jobs did you have?
So I worked at my first job ever. I was a cart boy at a grocery store, and I would pack those groceries. There was a little small town grocery store in Okemos.
Nice.
And I would, package people's groceries and bag them and yada, 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 take the cans out, pick up the carts. And then I worked a couple of retail jobs. And then I somehow was able to talk my dad into letting me use his lawnmower. And then I, walked around some of the neighborhoods. When I turned 16, I got a pickup truck, and I was so hyped because literally this is the reason why I was happy. I was like, yes, I can fit the lawnmower in the back there and I can start mowing people's lawns in the neighborhood next door.
Wow. That's awesome.
Like, what? And he was like, that's my lawnmower. You didn't even ask. And I was like, oh yeah. Can I use your lawnmower? And so I had probably 6, 7, 8 people's lawns that I would just mow. And then I worked 3 or 4 jobs, 2, 3, 4 jobs at a time. And they're usually all just retail or just stuff like that, man.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah. You told me a story the first time we met, and it really is a perfect example. We touched on, perfection being all about fear, and it sounds like you're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to try new things and put yourself out there. You told me a story about flying to Florida to meet Uncle G. You remember this story? I think the audience would like to hear this story because I got a kick out of it. You mind telling it for everybody?
Remind me of what it was again. Was it because there's a couple locations with that guy.
The one where he flew you back.
Oh yeah.
That's the one you told me.
That was for the ambassador program. Yeah. That was sick. So I cold called Grant Cardone. I think, did I mention him earlier in this podcast? So Grant Cardone is a guy that I would say he was one of the founders of the online sales training. You know what I mean? So he was one of those first original guys on YouTube.
Definitely well known for that. Yeah.
And so he did sales training, and then and then he also did a lot of real estate stuff. And so I caught on to it quickly because he's been on YouTube forever, like for so many years. And when I was 14 at the time, that was some of the videos I would watch and stuff like that. And then when I got into the real estate industry, I literally would just cold call them. Any number I could find, like literally any number I could find online. They're all fake. And half of them were like user busy and just stuff like that. I just cold called, would get an admin, would get an assistant, would get a sales rep, yada, 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 yada. And finally, after a certain amount of them, I get this call. I'm sitting in the office randomly. And he goes, "Is this Dominic?" I was like, "Yeah, this is Dominic Lee. What's up?" And he's like, "This is Grant Cardone. How you doing, man?" And I was like, you know how he talks, like super intense. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I knew this was him. I recognized his voice. I was like, holy cow. So I ran out of the office and I was like, went in the hallway so I could hear everything and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got this amount of time. And I can't remember the exact time right now, but it was short period of time. He's like, what's going on? And you've been calling everybody and my brother to try to get a hold. And so I started drilling him with questions, like half the time he couldn't even get his own answer out, right? Whatever. And then he was like, I've got this program. He does these conferences. They're like they're 10X conferences or something like that.
Yeah.
I got this program and I want to bring you out. And I was like, all right, so what's that entail, kind of a thing. And so he got me out there. I'm telling the right story, right? Or are we talking about the time when I was out there and I was cold calling him, trying to get a hold of him because I was in town?
I don't remember which one you told me. I just remember you met the guy and like after you called him a bazillion times, you finally met him.
Yeah.
And he gave you some time and then I think he flew you back or something.
Yeah. So no, he flew me out there for the 10X growth conference and it was the ambassador program or whatever. And I had to get all the money to do it because all I had to pay for was basically the hotel room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was out there and it was a sweet experience. Got to meet the guy, gave him, asked him a bunch of questions. And then that was a crazy, crazy event. If you've never been to the 10X conference, you should go because it was pretty crazy. Yeah. And he does them, I think, every year. I think he even did one during COVID, but it was online because the guy is a marketing genius. And it was insane, man. He gave all kinds of tidbits of advice. Obviously, he's just one of those individuals that you meet and you want to use up every second of the time that you have with them because they're just a wealth of knowledge. And not only that, and I'll use kind of him as an example of people you should take advantage of and try to get in contact with, because they're people that you look at and you think they're alien, right? They're so wealthy. They're on top of the world. He's got a helicopter. He's got a jet. He's got, $2.4 billion worth of real estate or whatever the number is.
Right.
People are like nervous about those people. They're like, well, they would never talk to me. They would never do anything like that. If there's any piece of advice I could give, I would say, if you want to try to talk to that person, try. Actually try. Mm-hmm. Because half of the time they might be irritated in the moment. What the heck is going on? Why is this person trying to bother me? I got a busy schedule, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? Just like anybody might. But if they are true to what they say, and like Grant Cardone talks about how he loves to help people all the time. If they're true to what they say, they're going to give you a little bit of credit and probably give you a little bit of respect because you were so relentless trying to talk to them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so,
yeah, man, I think that's great advice. I got a mentor. He's all about leading the hungry, not dragging the lazy. Right. So if you show like you did, like you blew him up and called everybody to the point where you got on his radar, right? Like the first 10 calls or whatever, he probably didn't even hear about it, but it's
22.
When his people are like, dude, this dude is called like 20 times, like looking for you, probably just told him as a joke. And he's probably like, well, shoot, let me talk to him. You know,
Exactly.
like I could just see Grant just being like, I want to talk to him. Get him on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what he wants. So he'll stop calling. But man, I think that's amazing advice. And, you know, I value your time, man. I know you got a lot going on, busy guy. What, we got 1 minute left. What's one nugget other than the one you just gave that you want to leave the GLE network with, and anybody else who finds this show later down the road?
Oh man, just don't be afraid to do anything. Don't be afraid to do anything and just work your tail off. That's what I can say. It is said so many times. It's on so many billboards. It's on so many different social medias and motivational quotes, dude. But I can until you can figure out the working hard thing, things will just be more difficult in life. Mm-hmm. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like everybody has to work hard no matter what they do. Right. Like they really do. And I had this is a funny part. Somebody said, well, what if you win the lottery? And I said, yeah, that's a good point. That's a lot of luck. Like if I won the Mega Millions or whatever and woke up one morning and I had $600 million in my pocket, I'd be pretty sick. But the thing that they don't know is how hard it is to keep that money. Like you got to work hard after that to keep that money. That's why 90-something% of all lottery winners go broke and bankrupt within 10 years.
You nailed it, man.
That. Like, it's just anything you want to achieve in life, dude, there's no way around it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to have to work hard. So start working hard. Like, that is what it comes down to. Do the things that suck. If you think anybody likes cold calling? Come on. Nobody likes cold calling. Nobody likes door knocking. Nobody likes that stuff. But if you want to be successful, and that's what you got to do to be successful in your career, then do it. Just suck it up, do it. And I used to make a game out of it, and I do this all the time, and I teach my agents now. If you are doing something that you absolutely hate, try to make it fun. Yeah. Make it a game. I made cold calling a game where I literally was like, this is resulting in a business. I absolutely hate it. I want to scream every time I do it. And I was like, I'm going to make this a game. I made it a game. So I made it to the point where every no that I got, I found out I made $104. I did the math. I was like, what did I make this year? How many calls did I make? Because I keep track of how many dials and how many conversations those turn into, yada, yada, yada. Uh-huh. Tip advice, track your numbers. Yes. So I made it a game. I was like, I make $104 for every no I get. This is amazing. And then when I had to cold call, I'd have 2 hours set aside to cold call or do whatever. Every time I'd get a no or told F you or told whatever, I was like, sweet, $104. Click. That's awesome, dude. Well, another person, you know what I mean? So just do great mindset, dude. Embrace the suck. That's it. Y'all, you listeners out there, you heard it straight from Dominic's mouth, man. So many good nuggets in this episode. Dominic, thank you for coming on. Y'all better go find and follow Dominic. www.realestateredesignedinc.com is the website. You can find him on Instagram @_Dominic Lee_ or on Facebook @Dominic Lee Realtor. Dominic, man, great having you on, dude. Appreciate it. As always. All right. Y'all go lead everything.